Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Ogbanje Joseph. Please subscribe to this channel, share, like, as well as drop a comment on the comment section. So, our lecture today is titled, you know, the impact of corruption on wealth creation and inequality in Africa. The impact of corruption on wealth creation, impact of corruption on wealth creation and inequality in Africa. Now, the issue of wealth creation and inequality is a controversial issue. Now, this is because the rich in Africa keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. The only reason for this is that the primitive is the primitive accumulation of wealth by a few economic, social, political, religious, oligarchy, and this has actually created a wide gap, between these groups and, of course, the bulk of the Nigerian or of the African masses. Now, this is a sharp divide. There is a sharp divide between the modern traditional sections of the African society, okay, with the former enjoying a relatively sophisticated lifestyle. I'm talking about the rich now, enjoying a relatively sophisticated lifestyle, while the latter, which is the poor masses, are closed to savagery. Now, corruption has created holes in the nation's, in the continent's economy that drain the indigenous inventions and innovations that could help create more wealth for the continent. It is good to note that there can never be true development without wealth creation, and there cannot be wealth creation without security and governance. Now, let us look at the impact. We're going to be looking at the impact of corruption on wealth creation and inequality. What is the impact of corruption on wealth creation and inequality? Now, number one impact is that corruption pulls labor to the traditional sector, which leads to low skilled workers, and as such, the demand for and as such, the demand for unskilled, for unskilled relative to skilled workers increases. Now, what does that mean? It means that the population growth in more corrupt countries like Africa will be higher. Okay, so that is actually number one. Number two, insofar as the modern sector is likely to be concentrated in the cities within Africa, and corruption discourages the modern sector, you know, countries with more corruption are likely to be less urbanized. Okay, so that is actually number two. Then number three, corruption affects the quantity, quality, cost, and profitability of investment. Number four, corruption is associated with an increase in barrier of doing business. Number five, corruption is associated with lower property rights and investment, especially foreign direct investment. Number six, corruption negatively affects firms' growth, productivity, investment patterns, and efficacy. Number seven, corruption affects the targeting, quantity, quality, and outcomes of social spending. Number eight, corruption creates a biased tax system that affects income distribution. Number nine, corruption affects human development and wealth distribution. Number 10, corruption is associated with poor public finance management and provision of public goods. Now let us look at what can be done within Africa to actually nip corruption and inequality in the bud, to actually create wealth that will lead to the development of the African society. What can be done? Number one, the government's fight against corruption should be intensified. So the anti-corruption war in several African countries should actually be topmost, should be intensified and encouraged. That is number one. Number two, the fact that some former, presidents or state, public office holders are being tried in several African countries is actually a light. Okay, is a light at the end of the tunnel already. Is a glimmer of hope because, of course, all of these will actually reduce corruption, close inequality, and bring about wealth creation and development of the African society. Okay, so those are the things. The next one is that in several African countries, there is now fight against corruption instead of fight against corrupt people. Now, there is a difference between fight against corruption and fight against corrupt people. Now, the anti-corruption agencies, where there is a fight against corrupt people, are used to actually witch hunt political opponents. Okay, but where there is fight against corruption, the law is a respecter of nobody. So if you are found corrupt, whether you belong to the ruling party or not, the law will actually come against you, and of course, you will be brought to justice. Okay. Then the next one is, in several African countries, okay, there's actually an adherence to the peer new partnership for Africa's development, new partnership for Africa's development. That is an initiative that, of course, African countries need to partner with themselves, in order to actually bring about development. All of these actually discourage corruption and inhibitive policies to development or wealth creation within the African society. Then the next one is peer review mechanism. Okay, peer review mechanism within the Africa. Now, the peer review mechanism within Africa is also helping the African countries to ensure that, of course, the fight against corruption is the fight against inequality, and of course, bad governance is actually topmost. And so, to that extent, several African countries are actually, behaving themselves. Okay, so those are just the major things. Thank you very much.